Can the Tennessee Titans offensive line deal with the defensive line of the New Orleans Saints? We're going to talk about that and more on a crossover Thursday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, and welcome into a very fun crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Titans and Locked On Saints, both a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Don't forget, you can always subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast for daily Titans and Saints content. And of course, you can catch us all across all those social media platforms as well. We got Tyler Rowland here at Tic Tac Titans, the one, the only, the daily host of the Locked On Titans podcast. Myself, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola and OLA, here to cover the New Orleans Saints every single Monday through Friday. And on today's episode, we're going to be previewing the New Orleans Saints hosting the Tennessee Titans on Sunday. Today's crossover Thursday episode brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. So go and check them out today at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code in all lowercase LockedOnNFL for the first deposit match up to $100. We're going to tell you more about them later on today's episode here. We're going to be breaking this thing down. Tyler, we're going to be taking a look at the deciding factors in this game, the matchups that can win or lose this game. But of course, we're going to start off with the biggest stories here. So Tyler, why don't you kick us off today? The Tennessee Titans, what's the biggest story up in Nashville?
You know, honestly, Ross, there's been a lot of change in Tennessee from a Saints perspective, somebody who maybe doesn't follow the Titans on a consistent basis. The Titans got a new general manager. The Titans totally remodeled the offensive side of the coaching staff and the coaching staff in general. The Titans had over 40% turnover on their roster this year, so they flipped nearly half of the roster, a lot of changes. But I think the biggest thing that everyone's looking for as we head into week one is what the Titans offensive line can be. The Titans offensive line has 4 new starters, and the 5th starter, who's the only returning starter, is changing positions. And that's interior offensive lineman Aaron Brewer, who was a left guard last year, is a bit too small to play guard. He's going to move to center now, which is more of a fit. He's one of the smaller starting offensive linemen in the game. So it makes sense to have him at center, utilize his quickness, help him kind of minimize that size disadvantage a little bit more. But you have left guard, rookie, first-round pick, Peter Skoronski, who Ryan Tannehill called Steady Eddie in his press conference on Wednesday. And that's what the Titans, that's what you expect when you pick a guard number 11 in the NFL draft. He better be steady from day one, and that's what they've got. But all the other positions kind of up and down right now. Andre Dillard specifically at left tackle, former first-round pick for the Eagles, couldn't really crack their starting lineup with all the depth they have there. Is that because they have so much depth, or is that because Dillard really isn't a starter in the NFL? The Titans are going to be the ones who find out, and that's going to start with a tough matchup on Sunday against the Saints on the right side. Chris Hubbard hasn't been a consistent starter since 2019. He's kind of a patchwork guy as the Titans starting right tackle. Nicholas Petit-Frere is suspended for 6 games to start the season. Daniel Brunskill, another guy like Dillard. Right, exactly. They know about that. But Daniel Brunskill at right guard, he's another guy who has starting experience with the San Francisco 49ers in recent years, but kind of in and out of the lineup as a guy who they didn't really want to be a starter, but could be a starter. Can he be a consistent guy for the Titans? There's a lot of question marks up front, and if they can't block, they can't open holes for Derrick Henry. They can't give Tannehill time to get the ball to DeAndre Hopkins. So kind of everything hinges on that offensive line up front, and that's the biggest question for the Titans heading into this game. What's kind of the big question? I know there's a lot of changes, but a lot of things stayed the same in New Orleans as well. So what's kind of the big storyline coming in for you guys over there?
Yeah, I think before I jump straight to that, I love that you point out the run game and the impact on the run game for the offensive line, because I think many times when there's a lot of changeover on offensive lines, we tend to harp on the passing game. But with this team's, I don't want to say its identity is the run, because it has to be very good at being like Derrick Henry level in the backfield, but Derrick Henry level at wide receiver too, right? And so being able to do both is huge for this team. And so I think that a part of what you're bringing up there in terms of the offensive line having its, I don't want to say woes, but big time changeover. Saints have a ton of changeover in their defensive line as well. They're bringing back only one starter in terms of Cam Jordan, right? And so there's going to be a whole lot of that matchup that I'm very excited to watch. But the biggest story for New Orleans is going to come down to the quarterback position. And I'm not just talking about Jake Haener being suspended for the first 6 games for PED violation. What I'm really looking at here is Derek Carr, right? I mean, they just brought him into the building. They had 6 different quarterbacks or 5 different quarterbacks play the position for them since Drew Brees left. And Derek Carr is supposed to be the guy that gets it right. Will he get it right? That's going to be the biggest thing for New Orleans.
Well, that's funny that you say that, because the conversation with the Titans all week has been, how do we prepare for this team with some of the changes? And I think it's a combination of, like I said, the coaching staff hasn't changed a ton. There's some holdover there. They probably will want to do similar things that they've done in the past, because those are the same coaches. But at the same time, you kind of have to look at what Derek Carr did well with the Raiders, because that Carr is going to want to bring over some of the concepts and some of the schemed up things that he was comfortable with there. So I think that is, while that may be a big question for the Saints, obviously a big question for the Titans is, what is this going to look like with Derek Carr? So while they're looking at it from a different perspective, I think if you asked a Titans fan what their biggest question with the Saints is coming in, it would be, what will Derek Carr look like in this offense? And that's the question on your side as well.
Yeah, big time. I mean, that's going to be the whole thing, right? You go out, you spend all this money on a brand new shiny quarterback, you bring him in, you want him to fix the organization, fix the franchise, fix the offense, really is what it is. The organization and the franchise are solid. But, in terms of fixing the offense and what was a anemic and at times myopic offense last year in 2022, can they be a more creative offense in 2023? Can they be an offense that runs more efficiently pre-snap? And you're going to have to do that against one of the NFL's best defenses going into this year with the Tennessee Titans. It's not going to be easy. This was a number 1 rushing defense last year. This was a highly ranked passing defense last year. They add more talent. They still have Jeffrey Simmons, which forget everything else about the Tennessee Titans, right? If you're matching up with that defense, you're matching up with Jeffrey Simmons, but then they add Sean Murphy-Bunting and more talent over in that defensive side. This is not going to be a pushover game for the New Orleans Saints. And this is a game that a lot of Saints fans would probably be worried about last year, but with the hope of what Derek Carr can bring you as a guy that can kind of manipulate a little bit more based on what he's seeing pre-snap, you can call 2 plays in the huddle and he can switch to the play that he think is going to be best run against that defense. It feels a little bit more like familiar offensive football here in New Orleans all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we talk about the quarterbacks and everything, but the offenses, the Titans get a new offensive coordinator, new playbook, everything like that. It's going to come down to 2 teams with really good defenses. Which offense can make the least amount of mistakes? I feel like that might be the game. So it's funny that we both have similar concerns, but similar hopes as well when you look at what the team can be going forward.
100%. And speaking of some of those hopes, there is no bigger hope that I have for this game than simply being able to watch Marshon Lattimore and DeAndre Hopkins go up against one another. That is going to be so much fun. And so next, we're going to take a look at the matchups that can decide this game, starting off, of course, with that big matchup here in the Big Easy. So we got that coming up for you as we continue on with today's episode, this crossover edition of Locked On Titans and Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Saints, I'll cut this and send it back to you.
You're fine.
In today's episode, this crossover edition of Locked On Titans and Locked On Saints is brought to you by PrizePicks. I mentioned it is the most fun way to play daily fantasy sports, daily fantasy football for you when you're looking at this weekend. All you have to do is pick 2 to 5 players, choose whether or not they're going to come in at more or less than their stat projection. And if you get those right, you can win a ton of money. And look, it's a lot of fun, right? This is not a situation to where you're going up against some spreadsheet wizard somewhere or some bot somewhere that's doing whatever it's doing, that drafted a team or whatever. No. You ain't got to worry about that. You don't have to worry about in-season roster management. It's literally just picking the players versus the house versus the projections. That's all that it takes. So you go ahead and check them out. Highlight all of the winnings that you're going to find because it is so much fun. And trust me, you're going to get a lot of winnings when it comes to PrizePicks. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code in all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. Once again, that is prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Promo code LockedOnNFL for their first deposit match up to $100. Go and check them out today. Daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, everybody, continuing on with this crossover edition here of Locked On Titans, Locked On Saints. We appreciate all of you everydayers making us your first listen of the day every day. Tyler, we got a whole bunch going on here at the network, man.
I know. It's absolutely fantastic. There's so much talent. There's so much going on. So excited for these crossover episodes just to make sure that all of our audiences and all of our listeners know about all the great talent that is spread around the network. It's great. And not only that, but we're going to utilize all of that great talent in this year's ultimate NFL season preview. Look, it's here. It's a 7-episode extravaganza. Like I said, you're going to get opinions, analysis, and plenty of debate, especially between me and the Jaguars host, Tony Wiggins. But you're going to get that from all 32 of our Locked On NFL hosts. They're going to give added insights from our national experts as well. It's a can't-miss series before the season kicks off. Catch every episode on Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. It's Locked On's ultimate NFL season preview. But Ross, I know we want to jump into some of these big-time matchups. And while one side of the big matchup we're going to talk about first is a guy who's been with the Saints for quite some time, the Titans side is a brand new Tennessee Titan, and that is DeAndre Hopkins going up against the talented cornerback in New Orleans, Marshon Lattimore. I'm so excited to see this matchup, Ross, because DeAndre Hopkins not only needs to be good for the Titans, he needs to break the curse. We've seen Andre Johnson, Randy Moss, Julio Jones. Titans fans have traumatic past from these veteran free agent wide receivers who get brought over. Maybe Julio wasn't a free agent, but you guys get the general idea. The Titans add a veteran receiver with a big name, and it doesn't work out. The Titans need DeAndre Hopkins to work out, or the season's just not going to go the way that they're hoping it can go. And having him test himself and seeing what version of DeAndre Hopkins the Titans are going to get in a matchup against Marshon Lattimore's best is the best of the best. Like, he can give you the best cornerback play in the NFL when he's on. We've seen him in those matchups with Mike Evans. And Hopkins is a similar player who maybe doesn't have explosive athleticism, but with great body control, great hand-eye coordination, understands all the craft and the nuance to the position. So I'm very excited to see if DeAndre Hopkins can get open, because from a schematic standpoint, and I want to ask you something before we move on from the matchup for sure. From a schematic standpoint, what teams like to do is they like to press the Titans, play tight man coverage, and bring pressure, because in previous years, especially once A.J. Brown was traded, the Titans simply didn't have anyone that could consistently beat man coverage. And if they did, safety's going over top of them, and now good luck finding somebody else. And the Titans didn't have a 2 or a 3. So if Hopkins can consistently win against man coverage, then you don't have to worry as much about that schematic disadvantage and what teams do to the Titans so much. DeAndre Hopkins can kind of be a big fix for your biggest weakness. My question really for you is, what do you think the Saints will do coverage-wise? I'm not going to pretend like I'm in their film all the time. Are they going to lean towards playing more zone, or do you think that they're going to lean this year playing more man, and the Titans will see what they've seen most over the last few years?
Look, I think the Saints are going to try to throw a big wrinkle at the Tennessee Titans. They're going to press. They're going to play tight man coverage, and they're going to try to rush. No, I think that's exactly what they're going to do. I mean, that is the bread and butter of what the New Orleans Saints defense is. That's their brand, right? Is to try to be physical. So no, I think you'll see exactly what you expect, what you've seen other teams try to do against this team, and for better or for worse.
Yeah, and with that being said, we're going to talk about deciding factors and things like that, but we're talking about PrizePicks. Tajay Spears, if the Saints are going to play tight man coverage, the Titans look for the running back out of the backfield in the passing game matched up on linebackers. And Tajay Spears, go to PrizePicks, whatever his receiving yards more or less is, take more. Take more. I think Tajay Spears is a Louisiana kid, played at Tulane. A lot of Saints fans may know him. I would expect him to have a good game if that is the schematic, because that's why I like to ask, because some teams that is their bread and butter, and they're just going to, what they do works against the Titans. But some teams, think about a Vic Fangio defense wants to play quarters and half, stuff like that. Are they going to change to do what beats the Titans the best? That's always a fun thing to watch for. So now that you have confirmed that for me, it's going to be strength on weakness, and DeAndre Hopkins' importance and being open even when he's covered is even more important based on what you just told me. So that matchup really will decide a ton in this game. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing schematically to pay attention to is that Marshon Lattimore is not going to shadow DeAndre Hopkins. So if they ever move DeAndre Hopkins into the slot, which I know a lot of teams have done with him in the past, it means that he's going to be getting his matchups with Alontae Taylor, who guarded him 9 times when he was with the Arizona Cardinals last year, because Marshon Lattimore wasn't in that game, and fared pretty well against him. But this will be Alontae Taylor's first real experience in the slot, even when it comes to collegiate games. And so that'll be a big mismatch potential piece to watch, is if they move DeAndre Hopkins in the slot, he's going to be matched up with a first-time slot corner, but a hyper-confident, hyper-athletic, hyper-physical slot corner there. So it might be inexperienced, but he's going to have all the confidence in the world that he's going to be able to get it done for sure.
That's interesting. And I actually want to ask you a question on the other side of it. We talk about this matchup, Titans wide receiver. I'm interested how because the Titans don't really do matchups. They don't shadow. They like to play their guys on the side of the field. But Christian Fulton, cornerback from LSU, is much more of a speedier guy. He's got more quickness. He would be a better fit to go against Chris Olave, whereas Sean Murphy-Bunting, who is a familiar guy from the division, he's more of a physical cornerback, long arms, ball disruption, play at the line of scrimmage. He could be a better fit for Michael Thomas. So I guess my question for you is, how are the Saints deploying these guys in practice? Who's playing in the slot? How do you think they'll be used?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. The New Orleans Saints will move these guys all around, all over their offense. Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, Rashid Shaheed being the big three. Rashid Shaheed's going to be a little bit more the get out in space guy. Look for him to kind of be utilized and sort of similar to what we saw them do with him last year, as somebody that can take the top off, but that they like to get the ball in his hands in space and stuff like that. I assume they'll continue to find ways to do that. But they'll do that with him from the slot outside. Same thing with Chris Olave. They love his inside outside potential. Same thing with Michael Thomas. They like using him as a big slot type of receiver. So if a guy, is going to be, a little bit smaller in the slot.
Roger McCreary, 5'11", tiny arms. Roger McCreary is the Titan slot. That could be a matchup.
That's going to be huge, because the Saints will definitely be deploying guys like Michael Thomas, Keith Kirkwood, who's also a bigger bodied guy, and their tight ends like Juwan Johnson from the slot as well. So those will be big time matchups to watch over on that side for sure. Ooh,
excellent.
Ooh, I just got so excited. Like even more excited. Like I'm excited football's back, but now like we're talking like X's and O's, you know what I mean? Like we're here.
100% on the Thursday edition of Locked On NFL. Me and the host of Locked On Cardinals, Alex Clancy, dived into the Thursday night game, the slate, and it just, halfway through, you just get that realization of football is back. Football is 100%. Back, and you hope that your team hired the right coaches and hired the right new players. And I can think of a place that maybe they should have gone to make sure that they hired the right people.
Ooh.
Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. Look, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Look, guys, it's really easy. All you got to do is create a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs, then add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile, and it's going to spread the word that you're hiring. They offer you simple tools like screening questions. It just makes it really easy to focus on the right candidates with the right skills and experience, and you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Welcome back in, folks. We are going to cap off this first crossover Thursday of the year presented by PrizePicks. So excited. Yeah, and we're starting it off with the best crossover. The infamous Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints. I am your host, Tyler Rowland from Locked On Titans. More than anything, thank you guys for making us the first listen each and every day. Locked On Titans, Locked On Saints, Monday through Friday. Get bonus episodes on the weekends a lot of time too. It's free and available on all apps all year long. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, Ross, this is a good time to remind people we're going to have live reactions on the Locked On Saints and Locked On Titans YouTube channels. Honestly, for me, I like to check out both. The team that we played, the team that I like, all of that. So check out both shows. We're going to be breaking down the game at the beginning of the week, and tomorrow,
we both
Friday,
do Game Plan Fridays. We both do this.
Game Plan Friday. Yep. We're going to tell you from both different sides how our teams need to beat your team. So it might be fun to check that out from both sides. So make sure you stay locked in to the Locked On Titans and Locked On Saints podcast. But with that being said, we're going to just dive into some deciding factors in this game. And Ross, you put me on the spot to go first a few times. I'm going to flip it at you. You tell us what will be the deciding factor in this game before we get into our final predictions.
So it's all going to come down to, for me, it goes back to the trenches. The New Orleans Saints need to control the ball, which means that they're going to have to be able to run, which is going to be tough against this Tennessee Titans defense. But if nothing else, they're going to have to be able to extend drives, which was a big issue for them in 2022. Something that they're hoping that the additions of guys like Derek Carr, like, bringing back, keeping Michael Thomas in the building, getting Jimmy Graham, right? Adding Foster Moreau, that adding in these pass catchers can also help them do. And of course, the addition of running back Jamal Williams. The Saints will not have Alvin Kamara in this game. It seems very unlikely that they'll have Kendre Miller, the rookie running back that they drafted in the third round out of TCU, who they picked over Tajay Spears, who went, I believe it was 10 picks later.
Yep.
Something you mentioned, some Saints fans might know who Tajay Spears is. They all know who Tajay Spears is, because they will never forget the fact that the Saints, and maybe never forgive the fact, we'll see how this Sunday's game goes, took Kendre Miller over Tajay Spears. And so there's a chance that the Saints are looking to supplement their run game with their fullback, Adam Prentice, with some guys that they're bringing up off the practice squad, like Jordan Mims, a converted wide receiver to running back in Kirk Merritt. And then, of course, Taysom Hill, right? Taysom Hill, probably from the quarterback spot, especially now with the Jake Haener suspension and all that. There's a chance that, they might only be able to use Taysom Hill as a quarterback or whatever that 3 quarterback rule is going to end up being. So for me, it's all about the ball control for the New Orleans Saints and keeping the ball out of the hands of Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, Tajay Spears, and those pass catchers over there. That's going to be the biggest thing for them. If they can control the ball and, like you mentioned earlier, not make mistakes, that's what they're going to need in order to be able to win. On the defensive side, they have to take advantage of the few mistakes that a guy like Ryan Tannehill would make, but there's not a lot of those on his ledger usually, except that they can get him started. Then, like most quarterbacks, they tend to keep coming, but it's hard to get him started. That's going to be a big thing. What about you from the Titan side?
Yeah, Tannehill's going to try to be smart, and it's funny that you mentioned the turnovers, because to me, that's a huge thing here. And I think it starts with, it's the turnovers, but really where that deciding factor is the Titans pass rush. So the best thing about the Titans over the last few years, everybody sees the King Henry, everybody saw AJ Brown and all that. The Titans defensive front, Jeffrey Simmons, the first name that has to be mentioned. Jeffrey Simmons, him and Cam Jordan are the best players on the football field in this game. No doubt about it in my mind. And whichever guy impacts the other offense the most, I think is going to win his team the game, because Derek Carr, like Ryan Tannehill, despite everything you see around the NFL, two non-mobile quarterbacks. I mean, they're not, combat boots and quicksand, but they're not guys who are going to be running around and making big plays like a Josh Allen or a Jalen Hurts, something like that. So like you said, if you get these guys and you start putting pressure on them, they're going to start, hey, I got to get the ball out quicker. They're going to start making quicker decisions, maybe make some mistakes. So if Jeffrey Simmons and the Titans pass rush with Harold Landry, Arden Key, Danico Autry, who's one of the most underrated players in the NFL, if these guys can start to get real consistent pressure on Carr, I think Derek Carr makes mistakes and he makes turnovers, similar to what you just said for Ryan Tannehill. So for me, the deciding factor in this game more than anything is, can the Titans pass rush dominate the game and then cause turnovers? Because the Saints have a great defense. I don't think the Titans are going to be going 75 yards up and down and putting points up. They're going to need short fields. They're going to need advantageous situations. And I think the only way that they can get that is if the Titans get 1 or 2 turnovers in this game. So I think whichever team does win the turnover battle will help their offense the most and put the defense in a tough spot. So I think the deciding factor will be the turnovers, but that to me is all about the Titans pass rush, starting with Jeffrey Simmons.
I love that you mentioned the short fields part, because the turnovers feed right into that, right? Those turnovers are going to help to create those short fields where all of a sudden you're starting in, good field position. And instead of you having to drive, let's say 50 yards to get in the field goal range, you got to drive 20 yards to get in the field goal range.
On these defenses,
that might be the difference. Yeah, that's huge, big time. And both of these teams have had some, special teams, specialist turnover and things like that this season. That's probably like maybe the biggest. Yeah, like if we were going to do X factors, like that's probably the biggest X factor going. The 2 kickers, like for sure. And then the punters too, about getting, again, that's the field position, flipping the field, all those other things, like that could make all the difference here going into this one.
We sound like old school ball coaches. I know. As a lot
Games
of
won in the trenches.
Special teams. It's like Jim Tressel, what Ohio State coach said. The most important play in football is the punt.
The punt. Yep.
Yes.
I know.
Old
we sound like
football
a bunch
in week 1.
I absolutely love it. All right, but let's wrap this up with our look at the score predictions. Technically I'm covering the home team. So I would like to concede to you going first, but I think we're kind of in agreement with where I think that this game ends up going, just different scores.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and kick us off. I don't mind. Some people are scared to give predictions. Not me, Ross. I'm ready. Let's see what happens. I think this game's 23-20 Titans. I think, again, these are very similar teams in different conferences, with offenses that will struggle at times throughout the year and defenses that will be carrying too much weight throughout the year at times as well. I think in this game, I trust the Titans' defensive backs more than I trust the Saints' defensive backs to create those turnovers when the pass rush gets opportunities and the pass rush gets there. So I think with Christian Fulton, Sean Murphy-Bunting, especially Kevin Byard and Amani Hooker at safety in the back end. Kevin Byard is the best interception specialist in the NFL for my money. And I do believe he's led the NFL in interceptions since he came into the league, or is at least top 3 since 2020. The top coverage grade per Pro Football Focus out of any defensive back in the NFL is Kevin Byard, over 90. I think the Titans pass rush gets pressure, just like the Saints pass rush gets pressure, but the Titans defensive backs create those turnovers, give the Titans a couple of better easy kicks for these poor kickers. I think 23-20, the Titans, I could see, maybe I'm off by 3 points and it's 20-17 because it should be a little lower, but I'll go 23-20 Titans.
Yeah, I'm going low scoring as well. And I think that, Locked On Saints listeners know I've been picking the Saints to drop this game since it was on the schedule, just because, look, you're going to have the growing pains of a new quarterback, of effectively a pretty big time changed offense. I think the defense is going to be good. I think all those things are going to be fine. I think the Saints can answer some important questions, even with a loss in this one. And so I'm taking the Titans to win this one 17-14. So I'm in the same place as you. And I think that it could be a last second field goal that ends up deciding this. If we're going to say it's going to be decided by special teams, let's say it's going to be decided by special teams, man. Like, I'm right there with you in terms of 3-point difference.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, that is going to do it for our first crossover Thursday of the year. I am Tyler Rowland, host of Locked On Titans, with Ross Jackson, host of Locked On Saints. Again, guys, thank you for making us your first listen each and every day, and make sure you're back with us on Friday as we go into our game plan. How can these teams win this game? And then make sure you're back on Sunday night for our instant reactions live on our YouTube channels, Locked On Saints YouTube, Locked On Titans YouTube. Thank you all so much. Start your weekend early and be safe out there.